What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was exiled and became a god? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. Naruto was enjoying his walk and appreciating the scenery around him, his eyes darting left and right, taking everything in and enjoying it, but then he remembered where he was supposed to be and what he was supposed to be doing when the location, but he just take his time and continuing walking the road leisurely, but then he thought, I have a bad feeling that something is going to ruin this moment of peace I am going to have in a few moments. And he was right, because just after ending that thought, a puff of smoke appeared in front of him and thought, just my luck, why'd I have to jinx myself? When the smoke cleared, it revealed a small red phoenix that was just glowing a burning red hue around itself. I have message for you, Naruto-sama, said the phoenix, which by sound of it was a female. I knew it. Was it Kikyo-chan who sent you? Asked Naruto, knowing the answer already, because out of all the students he had, Uzumaki Kikyo, mother of Uzumaki Kushina and Naruto's grandmother who was dead, was revived by the Shinigami when Naruto made a bet with her. 1. Was one of the most caring and kind person who favor people who are punctual, but she is also strict and hate people being late to a meeting, especially ones that the organizer held, yet said organizer was not there. And her friend, Namikaze Hikari, mother of Namikaze Minato and Naruto's grandmother from his father's side, was also like Kikyo except the being punctual part, cause unlike Kikyo, Hikari has a lot more patience than her. Hi, Kikyo-chan sent me to tell you to, in her words I quote, you better get here this instant, otherwise I will chop off your balls and crush them in front of you, end quote, said the phoenix. Naruto, after hearing all that, his face began to pale, thinking, oh shit. Knowing Kikyo-chan, whatever she said, she always meant it. I better go now to save myself from the punishment. Alright, I'll go now. Go tell Kikyo-chan that I'll be there in a sec, Runa-chan, exclaimed Naruto. The now identified phoenix called Runa-chan nodded its head before disappearing with a burst of fire. Naruto just sighed from the bad luck he got, but knew that it will be sooner or later if something like that were to happen, so he used one of his jutsus to get there. Jikukan ninjutsu. Rasenku. Konoha, one of the greatest hidden village of the 5 major shinobi hidden villages. Said to produce lots of powerful ninjas since the Shoden's Hokage times. The first fire shadow, Senju Hashirama, was the strongest shinobi in his time, and with his Mokuton, he was unbeatable, but only matched by Uchiha Madara of the Uchiha clan. The second fire shadow, Senju Tobirama, was the brother of the first, and with his mastery over Sweden and able to draw water from the very air itself has made him feared. The third fire shadow, Sarutobi Hiruzen, was the student of the first and the second, along with Mitokado Homura and Utatane Kaharu, nicknamed the Professor, for learning 1,000 jutsus and surviving through the second and third shinobi war. The fourth fire shadow, Namikaze Minato, student of the Jiraiya of the Sannin and nicknamed Konoha no Kiroi Senku, for using the Hiraishin, which he developed to end the third shinobi war single-handedly, killing thousands of Iwa nins and only leaving behind a yellow flash. The fifth fire shadow, Senju Tsunade of the Sannin, a famed medic nin throughout the elemental nations for her medical skills and her Iryo Ninjutsu, and also the granddaughter of the first. Many other great heroes were also produced, but the fourth was the greatest among all the previous Hokage. He was able to seal the Kyuubi no Kitsune Yoko into his firstborn son by summoning the Shinigami, making his a son of Jinchuriki. Right now in the Hokage Tower, there are 4 individuals in the office talking. Senju Tsunade Godem Hokage was sitting in her chair drinking a cup of sake, while Jiraiya was leaning at the window sill while looking out at the village with a blank look. Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina was sitting in front of Tsunade drinking the offered sake that was given by Tsunade. You know, even after 8 years of your returning and explaining how you survived the sealing, I still find it shocking and surprising that I'm sitting here talking to you too, started Tsunade, breaking the silence over them. What's even more surprising is that you're alive even after the sealing and has been in hiding with Kushina ever since, and coming back with 5 more children. If Naruto was still here, I say they're about a year or 2 younger for the eldest and 4 to 5 years for the youngest, said Jiraiya. Both Minato and Kushina flinch at this, since Naruto, their eldest son, held the most burden and was treated like trash every day, with mobs trying to kill him and many other things, knowing they can prevent it by staying with him. Minato and Kushina feel even worse than shit now and was regretting everything now by not staying with their baby boy and raising him up like what normal parents would do. "Jiraiya, that's enough," shouted Tsunade at Jiraiya. "You know they feel bad about leaving Naruto since the ceiling, so quit rubbing it in their face anymore," exclaimed Tsunade, knowing that the two didn't need any more guilt than they already have. "I'm just stating a fact, Haim, and of all the times they had to return is after Pain's attack and the council banishing Naruto," said Jiraiya, trying to calm down Tsunade. A few months later, after Pain's attack, Tsunade awakened from her coma and has been given the up-to-date was downright pissed and sad. Pissed at the council for banishing her surrogate little brother and son figure, and sad because she could not do anything to stop it. "Yeah, calm Tsunade, don't need to blame Sensei on this," said Minato. "Besides, more importantly, have you found any clues and whereabouts about my son?" continued hopefully. "Yeah, Jiraiya, you're a master spy, surely you have found a clue, right?" asked a hopeful Kushina. "Well, you old pervert, have you found any clues about his whereabouts?" said Tsunade. "Please tell us you have found a clue about now, since it has been 8 years. "No, I haven't found any clue about him yet," stated Jiraiya, earning disappointed looks from everyone in the office and sad looks from Minato and Kushina, but continued. "But from what my spy network has told me, there is 3 new hidden village being established and said that their shinobis are very strong. I don't care about new hidden villages popping out or not, I'm worried about where my son is," said a dejected Kushina. "Oh, I beg to differ, cause one of this new hidden villages that my spy network has found out is Uzugakure no Sato from the Whirlpool country that was destroyed by IWA Nins all those years ago," stated the Gamma Sennin, knowing the reactions of what Kushina will display after hearing something related to her home country. "What, why didn't you tell me?" shouted out loud by Kushina. "When have you gotten this news and how long ago have you received this news?" "Yay, Jiraiya, how long have you known and why didn't you tell me?" said a very angry Tsunade, from being kept in the dark about 3 new hidden villages and especially one of them being Uzugakure. "Sensei, you shouldn't keep to anything about Whirlpool from Kushina because she still loves that place, you know," calmly said Minato, trying to defuse the situation before it gets out of hand and trying to calm Kushina down. "Geez, one at a time will you? I can't answer all your questions at one go," joked the Gamma Sennin. "You better tell us what you know or else." Leaving the threat hanging in the air, and Jiraiya knows that whatever Kushina is going to do is not worth trying to joke about the subject, especially that of Whirlpool. Alright, I'll talk, don't have to threaten me like that," said Jiraiya and muttered the last part, but it seems to have been picked up on by Kushina and sending a glare at him that spoke about a lot pain if he doesn't hurry it up. "Anyways, I only got this information a few days ago while I was out gathering information on the Gaki's whereabouts, and I only got back yesterday and I was tired and it was late at night too." The answer seems to placate Kushina a little but was not satisfied about it, and so she shoots out her next question. "So Whirlpool country is rebuilt from scratch?" She received a nod, and Jiraiya explaining that the place was all rubbles and ruins. "Have you been into the place and see what's it's like?" Quote, "I tried to get in once under a disguise but they found me out before I even got near the entrance," exclaimed Jiraiya. "I don't know how they did that, but I remembered that there isn't any Hyugas that ran Rouge or leave Konoha because only the Hyugas have that kind of long distance range, and with the Byakugan's penetrating vision of seeing through objects, I can't think of anything they can have or use to tell me apart from the rest that heard of the place and trying to settle in," explained Jiraiya. "And another thing that I noticed about the Uzu Nin that found me out. This caught everyone's attention, wanting to know more about their ninjas and how strong they are, especially Tsunade, to gauge how much of a difference they are compared to her shinobi. The Uzu Nin that picked me out has huge chakra reserves close to a cage's. This caused everyone to pale, thinking that if all the Uzu Nin has huge chakra reserves then they are in big trouble, but that was quickly put away by what Jiraiya said. But from what I can observe from him, he seems to be one of their higher ranking ones, maybe an ANBU or Junin, but he didn't seems to be wearing a mask or carrying one, so he must be a Junin. A high Junin, I think. But that made everyone worry, because if their Junin already has near cage level chakra reserves, then what about their Anbu or their cage but that made them? Who is Uzugakure's new cage? And another thing that I find funny is that he doesn't wear a Hite Tae SP, stated Jiraiya. What? Shouted Tsunade. If they're not wearing Hite Tae, then where is their symbol of a part of their village? Cause a Hite Tae is a symbol of which village they belong to, said Tsunade, finding this indeed weird, and asked Kushina. Kushina, when you're still a kunoichi of Uzugakure, you identify yourself as a kunoichi of your village with your Hitate Tae with your symbol, right? She received a nod from her, who was also weirded out about it and said that she still have it with her, but then Kushina asked Jiraiya. If they're not using a Hitate Tae, then what are they using to identify themselves as Uzu nins? Questioned Kushina, finding it weird not using a Hitate Tae, as well as Minato, who was silent listening throughout Jiraiya's report. I don't know, but then I saw he was wearing a sash like those Guardians of the Fire Lord with a swirl on it with a 10-tailed fox surrounding it, but then I noticed that not all Uzu nins are wearing it, so it must be a sign or something. Then I noticed that all the Uzu nins have and thought that that was what their symbol must be. Finished Jiraiya, leaving a confused group of what their symbol is. What is it? Jiraiya, quit beating around a bush anymore and out with it, shouted Tsunade, having enough of the guessing game. Alright, their symbol is, pausing for dramatic effect, and the three in the office sitting on edge wanting to know what the symbol is a tattoo, finished Jiraiya. The three face faulted to the ground and all thinking the same thought. Their symbol is a tattoo, what the hell? Jiraiya, what the hell do mean their symbol as shinobis of Uzugakure is a damn fucking tattoo? Shouted Tsunade, really expecting something other than a tattoo. Yes sensei, what do you that their symbol is actually a tattoo? Said Minato, finding it curious as to making a tattoo as their symbol and thinking that anyone could give themselves a similar tattoo if they want to infiltrate the village, but stop that thought and replay what Jiraiya said in his head and thought, it can't be that simple, there must be something else unless it is a. Yeah, you old perv, you better not lie, said Kushina, hotly, thinking that it's ridiculous as a tattoo be a symbol and other people can copy it as well to infiltrate their ranks, stealing information under their noses. Jiraiya, upon seeing their faces and their question, was mentally laughing at how stupid they were, but when he saw his student's face, he could tell that he already the answer when he saw it in his eyes, so to enlighten the other two, he faced his student and asked him, do you the answer, earning confused looks from the two females in the office, but looked towards Minato and he said, their seals, aren't they sensei? Said Minato, earning a confirming nod from his sensei and two confused looks, but soon turned into understanding and turned towards the Gamma Sennin, awaiting an explanation. Correct Minato, their seals, and I see that Kushina and Tsunade understands now but is still confused, so I'll explain. Jiraiya cleared his throat to explain the explanation. The tattoos that I saw on the Uzu nin was not just a tattoo, but it was a seal shaped and designed into a spiral with probably some kind of mechanisms that identify them when they step into Uzugakure, and if anybody who isn't a seal master, they won't know it's a seal and probably thought that they could just tattoo it on their left top shoulders, which is where it is located, and enter the village. But if my theory is right, then on the village gates itself have some kind of seals that is able to identify their shinobis and probably also able to identify those that have fake ones as well, and sent an alert or message that there is an intruder in the village and will probably send ninjas to deal with it. The seals on the shinobi themselves must have some kind of marking seal on it that identify each and every shinobi of the village, and the village gates must have some kind of identifying seals to be able to identify the shinobi that pass through the gate, meaning that the seals on the gates is like some sort of information bank with the information of each and every shinobi of the village, and those carrying the fake ones that are tattooed on themselves without knowing the true purpose of the seal and passing through the gate, and if the seals on the gate could not identify them, then the seal will send an alert or message to the main control room or wherever the seal is connected to. Ending the lengthy explanation and catching his breath, he turned to the other occupants in the room and saw that their jaws have dropped down and touched the floor, having a dumbstruck expression on their faces and awe at what the seal is capable of doing. Tsunade was the first one to snap out of her daze and said to Jiraiya, Jiraiya, if your theory is true about the seal's function and mechanisms, then Uzugakure isn't a hidden village easy to sneak in even for someone of your caliber of being a spy master. Snapping Minato and Kushina out from their daze. I agree, Haim, that not even I could sneak in the village easily without some kind of ruckus in the village to distract them, and even if there is something to divert their attention from me, there is still the seals on the gates that is able to identify any who pass through the gate to worry about, said Jiraiya, finding the idea of doing that to Konoha's shinobi forces is a good idea, but it is very time consuming with only he and Minato being the only sealing masters in Konoha to actually do something this complicated without any accidents happening. Tsunade then had an idea and said, Jiraiya, maybe we sue, but was interrupted by said man when he said, I know what your idea is, Haim, and I can tell you that it won't work cause it is very time consuming doing it to every shinobi in our forces and the seal is very complicated and with Minato and I being the only sealing masters in Konoha to actually do something like this and to pass this task to other novice will have a huge screw up and I don't want that. Explained Jiraiya. Tsunade thought about it and thought that is true so she dropped that idea and said to Jiraiya, Jiraiya, I want you to keep searching for any information about the Brat's whereabouts and see if you can find a way around the seals from Uzugakure's security system and get in and find information about their shinobi forces and their cage, ordered Tsunade. After finding what little is known about Uzugakure from Jiraiya, she deemed that their village may be a threat in the future if they decided to turn their sights on Konoha if the security system of identifying their shinobi and routing the spies was anything to go by. Got it, Haim. I'll try to find a way around the seals and see if I can get in and learn more about this new whirlpool that have been rebuilt, said Jiraiya, jumping out from the window to do the task he was given. Turning around to face the two remaining people in the office, she told them, it's been a long day and we have learned a lot. Go back home and try to relax. Minato and Kushina just stood up and leave through the door back to the Namikaze compound where their family is waiting. Tsunade just thought about what happened today and took out a bottle of sake from one of her drawers and thought, I'm getting too old for this shit. And with that she started gulping down her sake. Unknown location. A rift in the air has appeared and it started twisting in a spiral-like fashion and with each twist, the size of the spiral began to increase and expand with parts of body coming out until the entire body is out, making it out to be a man. The man took in his surroundings and found that he was in a clearing within a forest. He follows the path out of the clearing to reach a giant gate on side of a mountain. The gate was 5 stories tall and 50-meter wide with a spiral in the middle with 4 triangles at the side of spiral in 4 directions. The spiral was red and the triangles were black and inside the triangles were circles which were white. The man put his hand on the gate and the spiral with the triangles and the circle started glowing blue for a few moments before disappearing and the sound of a lock being unlocked could be heard. Click. The gate started opening with the creaking sound coming from the hinge until it was fully opened and the man started walking down the hallway for a few minutes before reaching a door. He pushed it open and stepped in the room. The room was a meeting room, but what stood was that the tables and chairs was all below. The top was the observatory with the stairs leading down to the meeting area itself. The meeting area has a hexagon table with chairs, but behind the chairs, the walls have kanji on it. The one on the top has the kanji, Zashu, top right, Uzumaki, bottom right, Senku, bottom, Ki, bottom left, Kaji, top left, Shiso. The seat in front of Zashu is empty, but the ones in front of Uzumaki, Senku, Ki, Kaji, and Shiso are filled. Their appearance are hidden behind the shadows, but if one look closer, you will see that all of them are female. The person that was seated in front of Uzumaki stood up and addressed the man that came in. You're late, Naruto. She shouted out due to him being on the upper level and them being on the lower level. Her voice was smooth and was like a melody being played. The man that was revealed to be Naruto just scratched his head and gave a goofy grin, revealing his teeth and his larger than normal canines. Ma, don't be like that, Kikyo-chan. At least I'm here, aren't I? Said Naruto to Kikyo. Just take your seat and let's begin this meeting that you held already, said Kikyo, who was irritated that Naruto was late for something he arranged. Ma, Kikyo-chan, calm down, no need to be angry at something like this, said a voice that sounds like wind bells chime when the wind is blowing. Hikari-chan, you know that I don't have patience like you, so why do you keep reprimanding me? Said Kikyo, who was pouting and facing the person who was next to her and seating in front of the kanji, Senku. Please sit down now, Naruto and Kikyo, you too, and next time try to have a bit more patience, said a calm voice and in a placating manner. Kikyo sat back down and Naruto quickly went to his seat, which was in front of the kanji, Zashu, and said to the voice, only you could calm a situation down so easily, ne Shinya-chan. The person in front of the kanji, Shiso, smiled and said, I wasn't the hero of the world by saving it by sealing the jubi inside of me for nothing. The person in front of the kanji, Kaji, snickered and said, "Yeah, you sure did save the world alright, but in the end you yourself is human and you will die, but knowing that if you die the Jubi will be freed, that's why you split the Jubi's chakra up into 9 different entity, which is what the current shinobi world now known as the Q no Biju, and you seal the body into the moon and causing the humans to try and find a way to control the Biju, and in the end all it causes war for more power. And so in a sense you have saved the world from the Jubi, but war has continued on for the quest of controlling the Biju, and they succeeded, but now they warring for more land and power, but in doing so they use Jinchuriki to do their dirty jobs for them. Rikudo Senin." Hearing all this, Shinya began to feel down and curse herself for not finding a better solution to solve the problem, but that thought was stopped when a voice said, "Mira, shut up. Don't blame everything on Shinya, and besides, didn't you try to control the Biju for your own goal?" the voice said sternly and accusingly in the end. Shut up," Mira stuttered and said to the voice. "Nobody asked for your opinion, Hana, and besides, didn't you control the Biju once with your Mokutan, huh?" The person in front of the kanji, Ki, now identified as Hana, said, "True, I indeed did that, but that was to stop the wars that was going on, and in the end didn't I give the Biju to other villages as a sign of peace and trust?" Mira couldn't think of a comeback or a retort from that and just stay silent until Hana said, "Apologize to Shinya now," sternly said. "So sorry, Shinya. Guess I kinda overstepped my bounds, huh? Forgive me," said Mira sorrowfully. "Apologies accepted, and I know that not all the things I've done in the past can be changed, but since I received a second chance at life given to me by Shinigami-sama and Naruto-kun, I should treasure it and try to make up for my past mistakes," said Shinya, reminiscing about her past and promising to herself that she will make up for her sins. "Okay, enough chit-chat and let's begin this meeting, but first let's take attendance," said a cheerful Naruto. Kikyo stood up and said, "Uzumaki Kikyo here." Hikari stood up and said, "Namikaze Hikari here." Hana stood up and said, "Urin Hana here." Mira stood up and said, "Tenyo Mira here." Shinya stood up and said, "Tenbana Shinya here." "Good, all of you sit down and let's begin this meeting," said Naruto, and they all sat down and the meeting starts. Uzumaki Kikyo had long bright red crimson hair that stops right above her butt. Her emerald forest green eyes shone brightly like it was glowing. She had a cute yet mature face with no traces of baby fats in giving a wise and beautiful look. She wore a simple kimono that was red with flower patterns on it, and it was hugging her every curves, giving her a more wise appearance. Though her clothes may seem simple, her skills as a ninja are not to be underestimated, Naruto thought. Namikaze Hikari had long sunny kiss blonde hair that stopped at her mid-back. Her bright sapphire eyes shining with mirth, making her eyes very attractive. She had a cute face that was so irresistible that you want to pinch her cheeks. She also wore a simple kimono that was aquatic blue with flower patterns on it that was in gold, hugging her every curves, giving her a more beautiful appearance. Urin Hana had long black hair mixed with green that stopped below her butt. Her black eyes that were also mixed with green at the side of the iris was gleaming in anticipation for the meeting. She had a pretty face that was devoid of any blemishes or freckles, giving her a beautiful look. She too wore a simple kimono that was forest green and also with flower patterns on it that was black. Tenyo Mira had long ebony hair mixed with red in it that was in a ponytail. She had black eyes with mix of red at the iris. She wore a simple kimono that was black also with flower patterns on it that was red. Tenbana Shinya had long silver hair that was spike at the front and the top that stopped above her thigh. She had gray eyes. She wore a simple kimono as well that was silver and also with flower patterns on it that was blue. For a meeting, they sure wear simple clothings for it. Hope they don't do that to every meetings that I held, especially the important ones, thought Naruto. Alright, let's begin this meeting, shall we? First Kikyo. At this, Kikyo perk up. Attention. How much has our shinobi grown since my absence? Said Naruto curiously. Well, our shinobi has improved a whole lot more. They have gotten stronger under my training along with the other instructors that help me with it, stated Kikyo. Naruto was curious about the instructor part, so he asked what instructors. Well, the instructors that I'm referring to are the other students that you teach besides us, replied Kikyo. They came around a few months ago for their vacations. They said they'll be staying a few weeks before they left. Who were they? Asked a curious Naruto, sorting out the names of the students he had teach in his head. They were Ni Yugito, Reikori Chiyo, and surprisingly the Godem Mizukage, Terumi Mei, said Kikyo. Naruto was shocked that 3 of his stronger students besides the ones that are with him now came to Uzugakure no Sato for vacation and teaching and training his shinobi, especially the Mizukage. Mei-chan came. I thought that she was stuck with doing the dreaded enemy of all cages except me. Paperwork, exclaimed a shocked Naruto. It's not every day you see a cage taking on an apprentice, not much less of an allied nation's army. Well, that problem was solved when you told her the secret to defeating it, replied Kikyo calmly. Did I? Asked Naruto. Yep, you did. Besides, you only told the secret to defeating paperwork only when they accept your condition, replied Kikyo. I see. I guess I keep forgetting things nowadays. But I remember what the condition was and that but was interrupted, yes, and that was sleeping with you, said Kikyo with a smirk. Now I remember that day. He didn't think she was that desperate for wanting to know the way of defeating paperwork that she will do anything for it. Hey, she even offer her virginity for it, Naruto remembered with a smirk. Ahem, Naruto snapped out of his daze and paid attention to what Kikyo was saying. Anyways, now that you remembered now, any more questions for me? Kikyo asked. Yes, there is one more thing that I would like to ask you. Receiving a nod to continue, how strong has our shinobi become? Asked Naruto. Well, for the genins, we would like them to enjoy first before we up their training, Naruto nodded at this. But for the chunins and those above, we upped their training a little, said Kikyo, and Naruto asked how strong are they now? Well, for the chunins, they are at low to mid-level junin, but there were ones that are high junin level as well. Naruto hoped that his shinobi aren't pushing their limits too much. The majority of the junins are at mid-anbu level. A few at high anbu level, but that's only 3 to 4. The ANBUs are all around mid-cage level, finished Kikyo. Naruto was impressed at the level of his shinobi and thought that if any nation was stupid enough to attack them, then they are going to be in a big surprise. Thank you for reporting and your hard work. Sorry to trouble you, but please send the profile of every shinobi in my ranks to my office later, said Naruto, with Kikyo saying no problem. Now that that's over with, let's move on, shall we? Hikari, you're in charge of the R&D department, so what have you guys been doing? Asked Naruto. Well, we have nothing to do these days since we finish up our big project called Project Fire, and yay, I know the name sounds lame and all, but that is what we've been researching on, said Hikari, a bit embarrassed about the project naming. Not at all, Hikari-chan. In fact, I'm curious about what kind of researching of fire are you doing, said Naruto, curious about what they did. Hikari brightened up at that and said, well, you know that the Uzumaki no Tsurugi has a special effect of producing flames when you put enough chakra into it, right? She received a nod. Well, we tried researching on the blade's effect and discovered ways of reproducing it, said Hikari. I see, that is interesting. Since I was the one who forged the Uzumaki no Tsurugi with the goddess Aim no Murakumo and Sujin the elemental god, I know its effects better than anyone. And I also gave the sword to Kikyo-chan to use, stating that it is a Uzumaki family heirloom since she's the only remaining Uzumaki now that she's alive again, said Naruto. Actually, Naruto, catching said blonde's attention, Kikyo isn't the only remaining Uzumaki, there is another one out there, said Mira, who was in charge of the Spy Information Network, aka the SIN. This news was shocking to all. All of them thought that all the Uzumakis were wiped out and the only remaining survivor that survived the destruction of Whirlpool was Uzumaki Kushina, Naruto's mother, who later gave birth to him with Namikaze Minato. But since Naruto had never heard of any news or information about her, he presumed she was dead by giving birth to him. He of course blamed himself for her death, but his friends managed to get him out of his funk. Kikyo was happy that there was another remaining Uzumaki and she was excited to meet up with him or her. Well, Mira, who is it? Asked the impatient Kikyo, wanting to know who the remaining Uzumaki was. Naruto was silent with his own thoughts. Calm down, I'm going to tell, all right, said Mira, but first tell me, which Uzumaki has had connection with Konoha? Konoha? Asked Naruto. You mean the other Uzumaki is in Konoha? Yes, she is in Konoha, and you haven't answered my question. Which Uzumaki has had connection with Konoha before? Mira asked again. Well, I can't think of any, that's for sure, said Kikyo, thinking about any Uzumaki who had connection with Konoha. Naruto was in his own thoughts again. Konoha, of all places, why there? But it is interesting, why would a Uzumaki went to Konoha for? The only person I could think of that has any connection with Konoha was my mother. But it can't be, can it? Mira looked between the two and saw that Kikyo was confused, but Naruto seems to figure something and decided to tell them. It seems Naruto have figured something out but is stuck. Naruto turned his head to her, listening to what she says, hoping that what he was thinking was not true. The Uzumaki that has any connection to Konoha was Naruto's mother, Uzumaki Kushina. And she is back with Namikaze Minato with 4 children, said Mira, revealing the truth. Naruto, Kikyo and Hikari, all 3 of them froze and stopped whatever they're thinking and replay what she said in their heads. The rest were shocked that Naruto's family is still alive. Kikyo was shocked that her daughter was still alive all this time, but then she thought, if she's still alive all this time, then why isn't she or her husband trying to find Naruto-kun? Hikari was thinking the same thing too, and they both were angry. But all thoughts was stopped when a huge wave of ki was released. The ki was so strong that Kikyo, Hikari, Hana, Mira and Shinya stopped breathing and froze up. They turned towards the source, who was releasing this monstrous level of killing intent that's even more than the Kyuubi is capable of releasing. They saw Naruto was the source of the monstrous level of ki and knew why. After all, who wouldn't be angry when they found out that their parents was still alive and not try and search for their own son? Naruto was so mad that he's producing not only ki but Ryotsu as well. Chakra is made up of the spiritual energy and the physical energy of a person. But Naruto is able to use them separately. Ryotsu is a spiritual energy, the energy of the dead. Kai is the physical energy, the energy of the living. Humans have the energy of the dead and the living, but they must be balanced. That is how chakra is formed. If one has too much spiritual energy and has less physical energy, they can't create chakra. Right now Naruto is releasing a lot of Ryotsu, thus causing everyone to feel a crushing weight on them but struggle not to fall. So much ki he's releasing, and Ryotsu. Unbelievable, he's able to release the spiritual energy that made up chakra in even his emotional state, and so much, thought Kikyo. Damn it, no wonder he's the strongest that even the gods respect, and the high demon lords and devils as well, thought Mira. If Naruto-kun were to go to Konoha, then those unlucky saps that try to stop him for reaching his goal will die before they even realized it, especially with that jutsu of his and that sword of his as well. I almost pity my son and Kikyo's daughter that they will be having to deal with this Naruto, not someone I would like to go up against, that's for sure, thought Hikari. Oh boy, I just hope that he don't use his dujutsu or his space-time powers here, or all else not even all of us could stop, thought Hana. He is indeed powerful. If I must compare the Jubi and Naruto-kun on who's more dangerous, I'd say that Naruto-kun is even more dangerous than the Jubi, and that's saying something, thought Shinya. The ki and Ryotsu dropped a little, but still enough to make all of frozen in fear of Naruto going on a rampage. So my family, he said in a low and dangerous tone and spat the word family like it was poison, is still alive all this time and has been ignoring me for the sake of their own and their children. Naruto-kun, please calm down, said Kikyo, trying to calm Naruto down. Naruto seems to have heard her and took a long, deep breath and exhaled it out, and repeating it a few more times before he finally managed to calm himself down. The ki and Ryotsu disappeared and they are all able to breathe normally again. Sorry about that, but it was too much for me to handle. I mean, yay, I had a hunch that they both are alive somewhere, because a few years back when I discovered a gate that leads to hell and I met the Shinigami and she told me. Flashback. 5 years ago. I can't believe I'm actually speaking to the Shinigami right now. Hell, I'm not even dead yet and here I am speaking one-on-one with the Shinigami, and it's a she at that, exclaimed Naruto with no amusement in his voice. The Shinigami was a pretty goddess. She had long white hair that stopped at her butt. Her skin was pale but not enough to think that she's sick or something. Her eyes had a black iris and her pupil was yellow. She had a beautiful face befitting of a goddess. She wore a plain black kimono that hugs her curve, showing off her beauty and parting a little, showing off her impressive DD cup cleavage. She had her Oni mask on her hands from just removing it. The Shinigami smirked at Naruto's blushing face when he saw her impressive bust, and finding out that the Shinigami was a female, though she find it insulting that all powerful beings must automatically be male. So Naruto-kun, like what you see, she bent down so that Naruto was able to more of her cleavage, and speaking of Naruto, he was trying to hold in the nosebleed but was holding it in barely, and even more harder for him when she bent over. Yes, quite a lot actually, but please, I'm here to speak with you about whether or not are my parents dead or alive, said Naruto, trying hard not let his lust take over him. The Shinigami pout and said, "Ah, can't I have a little fun in while?" and used the dreaded puppy eye on Naruto, but he has seen it enough times to withstand its effects and said to her, "Later." The Shinigami groaned and said, "Fine, I'll talk, but later you better let me have my fun, and that's with you." In a seductive tone and swinging her hips, sensually walking over to Naruto and put her hands on his waist and pressing her S on his chest. Naruto blushed a beet red and stared into the Shinigami's eye that was filled with lust and nodded and putting his hands on her waist and hugging her, pressing her S closer to his chest. Shinigami blushed at the bold move that Naruto just displayed and inwardly cheered because not many have the balls to actually try and act intimate with her with surrounded by death, and all but guess that that was true. After all, she is the death god or goddess. Naruto smirked at her blush and leaned over to her ear and said in a husky tone that sent shivers up her spine, "Just be patient, Shi-chan." She blushed at the nickname he gave her. "After you tell me what I want, then we can have fun," finished with a foxy grin that always made her heart beat faster. Shinigami just blushed redder and her eyes shows unrestrained lust that waiting to be released. Shinigami said quickly, wanting to get to the main event. "No, they're not dead, I know, because the dead always comes through here to see if their souls are pure enough to be in heaven or stay in hell, and I have never seen your parents come down here for judgment, but I have noticed that right after the sealing of the Kyuubi, when I tried to get your father's soul, I just can't seem to take it, so I just give waiting for the time for him to die come, and now we can go to the main event, right?" pleaded the Shinigami. "Thanks for the info, Shi-chan, and geez, you're sure impatient," said Naruto with a smirk. With that, the Shinigami just ripped Naruto's clothes and hers and started having for 3 hours straight. End flashback. "So after that I went to find any information about their whereabouts, but I just can't seem to find them, so I give trying to find them, but I didn't expect them to give birth again and them having the happy life with their families while I'm alone in the world without my families," said a depressed yet angry Naruto. Hikari, seeing this, stood up and went over to him and comforted him while saying to him, "It's alright, Naruto-kun, you have us, we're your family now and we won't let anyone hurt you anymore," in a soft and motherly voice, trying to calm Naruto down. The others saw this and went over to him and hugged him as well, saying comforting words to him. Naruto was touched and he allowed a few tears to fall from his eyes and said, "Put your reports in my office later, I'll read them later." Meeting adjourned. With that, he stood up and used Rasenku to teleport them back to their home in Tengoku, or what is known as the new hidden village, Ryugakure no Sato. A few days passed and Naruto is currently in his office in Uzugakure. He was reading the reports sent to him about his shinobi and so far he was impressed. Putting the one he was reading down, he sipped a bit of his tea and stood. His office, if you could really call it that, seems more like a lounging area than an office for work. His office was huge. 3 bookshelves filled with shelves upon shelves of books and scrolls to his right end of his office, and sofas in front of it in a U manner, with a table with the top being glass between the 3 sofas. The left end of his office meant for brewing tea or coffee or other beverages, with paintings hanged on the wall and sound systems. The floor is layered with a carpet over it, and behind his desk were windows. And the roof having a disco ball with music blaring. Naruto turned and looked out the window overlooking his village with a smile. But that turned into a frown when he saw an explosion coming from the village. He felt a presence behind him but didn't turn, knowing who is it. "I want you down there now and relay orders to evacuate the civilians and see who is the idiot that attacks us in broad daylight, Mira." "Sir." He felt the presence left and sigh. He turned and took a sip from his tea before taking his hat to cover his appearance and left his office to the scene with his tea in hand. At the scene, Jiraiya didn't expect his entrance to cause such a commotion and an explosion at that. "Damn it, I'm so screwed. What the hell caused the explosion? It definitely wasn't me, and now they know I'm here. Fuck, I'm so dead," Jiraiya thought. Jiraiya looked around and saw people running away from the area, but definitely could sense the shinobi coming his way, and also felt one with huge chakra reserves coming towards his direction as well. "Well, fuck, didn't expect this to happen. Now what should I do? I can't escape, they will catch me if I do," and Jiraiya's thought came to a halt as he had to dodge several fireballs aiming at him. He looked towards the direction it came from and saw a beautiful woman. The woman was standing at 5 feet 7 feet tall and had long ebony hair with red highlights that was in a ponytail, wearing a silver cross necklace. Black eyes with a bit of red, wearing a sleeveless black zip-up shirt over her D-cup that stop at her midriff, and black capri shorts that stop at her thighs, with black stockings, wearing black combat boots. A silver bracelet with a phoenix on her left wrist and black fingerless gloves on both hands. Jiraiya was awestruck at the beauty this woman has and couldn't help but let out a perverted giggle with thoughts running in his head. The woman heard the giggle and got a slight shiver and a twitch in her right eye. She sent a punch filled with fire chakra and released it, sending a blast of fire speeding towards the pervert. Said pervert saw this and widened his eyes and dodged the speeding blast. An explosion of dust rose from the impact, forming a small crater. Jiraiya knew now is not the time to joke around and became serious. Mira saw the sage got serious and proceeded to gauge his power level. She launched off and in a second she appeared in front of Jiraiya and sent a punch to his gut. The sage was shocked at the speed and barely blocked the punch and countered with a kick. Mira jumped to avoid the kick and lashed out with a kick of her own while Jiraiya jumped back to avoid it. Mira, still in the air, disappeared in a blur and appeared behind the sage and punched with fire now surrounding her hand to his head. Jiraiya, sensing her presence behind her and the danger, quickly used a shunshin, body flicker, to appear a distance away from her. The two eyed each other before they moved again. Jiraiya flipped through hand seals and said, Kaden. Enden, fire release, fireball. Mira, seeing the fireball coming towards her, didn't move, in fact she smirked. When the fireball was closer to her, she swiped her hand and along with it the fireball disappeared in wisp of flames. Jiraiya was shocked at the display and seeing her still smirking knew something was up. Fire appeared in her outstretched hand and she threw it in the direction of the sage. The fire then erupted into a fireball of Mira's height once it left her hand and sped towards Jiraiya, who was again shocked at the display but quickly dodged to the side. The fireball stopped when it hit a tree and promptly disintegrated it into ashes. Jiraiya was wide-eyed, shocked and terrified at the power the fireball contained. He turned to see the women still smirking. He gulped and thought, damn, is she strong. Her ability to control fire is beyond astounding. Damn it, this is so not my day today. Jiraiya then sensed something thrown at him. He tilted his head to the side to avoid it. There was a shattering sound and both Mira and Jiraiya turned towards it. They saw a broken cup in pieces and the contents of it on the ground spilled. They sweat dropped, thought, what the hell? Ah man, my cup is broken and my tea is gone, a voice whined. They turned towards the source and saw that they were surrounded by shinobis. Mira let out a sigh and said, what the hell took you guys so long? I thought you all bail on me or something. The apparent leader, since he wore a black hat with the swirl of the Uzumakis in red blocking out his face except for the two bangs of hair. He wear a black haori with lightning patterns on it in red and a white shirt and blue shorts with black sandals. Jiraiya's sweat dropped even more at the sight. He then sensed the power from the man and reeled back in shock. What the hell? His chakra is beyond even what that woman possessed. He's a monster. And I can sense that he's hiding his chakra. Just how much chakra does he have? Jiraiya thought, scared of this individual who appeared. Said person looked around despite having his hat blocking his eyes and said, well, you guys at least didn't destroy the place or something. That's good, or else you guys are going to get it. At the end of his speech his chakra suddenly flared, shocking Jiraiya, but Mira was unaffected. You also didn't meant me, right? Mira asked. Number. Why do you ask? The man said. Nothing, just asking to confirm. Mira said. The man nodded his head and turned to Jiraiya. They were silent for a while before. What the hell are you doing here, Erosenin? Said pervert. Sage promptly face faulted and reacted. Who the hell are you calling Erosenin, you twerp? I'm not just a pervert, I'm a super pervert. Shouted at the end with his hands making grabbing motions to his side. The man raised his left brow even though it was blocked by his hat and shrugged, saying, what's the difference? You're still saying you're a pervert, Erosenin. Jiraiya was about to retort but stopped when his mind registered that the man called him Erosenin. Impossible. Only Naruto called me that, and recently Kushina as well. It can't be he's Naruto? The man tilted his head a little before removing his hat, showing his features. Jiraiya was shocked, but not at his appearance but at his whisker-like marks. His mind stopped, leaving him a blank for a while before it rebooted, and this time taking in his features. A trembling finger pointing at him, he said, what happened to you? You look like a woman, so girly, so feminine. Are you really Naruto? Naruto got a twitch from his eye and instead of replying verbally, he replied physically with a fist. Jiraiya was sent flying from the punch and landed at a beach near the ocean. The sage was struggling to stand and his face showed shock from what just happened. How did that punch reach me? Our distance was quite far and with a punch that didn't even reach me, I was sent flying all the way from that field to this beach. What the hell? Soon later Naruto appeared in a flurry of wind. He smirked and said, "Well, how do like that, blast from the past, punch of mine arrow senin." The pervert was now standing and looked at Naruto still with a shocked look on his face. Jiraiya composed himself and smirked, "Not bad Naruto. I don't know what you did but it was incredible. Sending me flying to such a distance was mighty impressive though I thought only Haim was the only one capable of that, guess not huh?" Naruto just chuckled and said, "You know I didn't expect this kind of approach by you of all people barging into hidden villages, making an appearance with a bang. Hey, the bang was clearly not my fault. You did something didn't you?" Jiraiya questioned, hoping to get information from him. "Don't bother, I know you're trying to get information from me. Instead of hiding it I'll tell you," Naruto said with a smirk. Jiraiya was mildly surprised that he was giving away information like that. He shook his head at that thinking, idiot same old Naruto. "But even if I tell you this you won't be able to anything about it." "What do you mean by that?" Jiraiya asked, narrowing his eyes at it. "After bringing the island back from being rubbles, we didn't immediately started rebuilding the village. Instead the seal's master all painted a giant seal over the island that immediately detects and reacts to the foreign chakra signature that isn't keyed in the master seal in an explosive manner." Naruto revealed. Jiraiya was floored. He was completely taken aback by the information. His eyes were wide and his jaws was dropped. He couldn't believe the information he was being fed and he voiced it, impossible. A seal that wide just to counter any intruder that entered the village, that will take a lot time. How in hell do they do it? Naruto smirked and pointed his left thumb at himself exclaiming, "Me." His response was a look that said he didn't believe it. Naruto sighed and shook his head, "You don't have to believe me. Hell, whether you believe me or not is your choice. I won't change your thought. But note this," his tone suddenly got darker and colder scaring Jiraiya and have a shiver go down his spine. "You infiltrated the village, my village. Past connections or not I have to regard you as an enemy. Whether you did it in the name of your village or not is none of my concern or business but, you have stepped into our lands uninvited. For that pay the price for doing so." Immediately ending with his speech, Naruto dashed forward and with a sidekick, he sent Jiraiya skidding along the sandy beach. Jiraiya righted himself in midair and started going through hand seals shouting, "Sweden. Mizurapa, water release, violet water wave." The blast of water headed towards Naruto but he merely put his palm in the way and said, "Fuugen. Fumyaku, wind release, wind pulse." Naruto's jutsu sends a pulse of wind towards the water stopping it and cancelling it as well. Jiraiya skidded along the sand and was shocked but recomposed himself quickly but his mind was going a mile a second. That was the same as that woman. Did he mastered his element to that extent that he don't need hand seals anymore? This is most distressing, and he also said his village just now. Does that mean he's? Jiraiya said, "Well, from your words just now I'll have to take this seriously. Your skill has definitely increased and it'll be trouble for me if I don't take you on seriously Naruto." "Come." Naruto smirked and said, "As you wish," and made a cutting motion releasing a blade of wind soaring towards the sage. Jiraiya made some hand seals and slammed his hands to the sand and said, "Doden. Doryuheki, earth release, earth rampart wall." A wall of earth rose from the sand to stop the attack. Naruto seeing this just smirked and shouted, "It's no use." The blade of wind cuts through the earthen wall and continued towards Jiraiya. The man seeing his jutsu cut like butter to a hot knife jumped to avoid the attack and goes through hand seals and said, "Kaden. Gukakyu no jutsu, fire release, grand fireball technique." He breathes out a fireball and launched it towards Naruto. Naruto saw this and again smirked and launched a blade of wind towards it. Jiraiya saw this and said, "Naruto, you know wind can't beat fire, it only strengthens it. Sorry to say but you lose." Naruto heard what the man said and shook his head while chuckling. "Actually Jiraiya, what you said could definitely happen but if I were to sharpen it and make it thinner, what do you think would happen?" Ending with a smirk. Jiraiya heard it and gave it thought and it didn't take him long to figure it out. "Oh shit. Instead of strengthening it, he couldn't continue his thoughts as he just saw his fireball got cut in half as he realized and started making hand seals, putting more chakra into it, and shouted, Sweden. Swijinheki, water release. Water encampment wall. The water from the sea exploded and rise and dashed towards the beach, forming a wall in front of Jiraiya, blocking the attack. The blade of wind hit the wall of water and it got cancelled. The water wall soon collapsed, splashing the sand with water, making them muddy. Jiraiya landed on the sand and Naruto spoke. I see you made that wall more thicker by adding more chakra to it, thus stopping it. I see that you realized that my wind is dangerous, huh? Jiraiya remained silent and just stared at him. Naruto returned the stare before digging into his pocket in his haori. Jiraiya tensed and prepared to attack, but face faltered when Naruto pulled out a small teacup. Naruto saw this and laughed at him, thinking that he was going to attack him. He charged the cup with his chakra and a seal inscribed on it glowed before tea started filling up the cup. He took a sip from it before drinking all of it and a sigh escaped his lips once done. He put back the cup in his pocket and looked at Jiraiya. He started, you could have attacked me when I was sipping my tea? Jiraiya shook his head saying, I'll take my chances. And beside from what I can determine from you in this battle, you have become stronger and more powerful than before. I'll have to proceed carefully in dealing with you now. Naruto smiled and shook his head while chuckling. He breathed in and then out and said, hey, you didn't change Aro Sennin. Jiraiya just shook his head while he chuckled. But don't worry, I'll just beat you up a little and then send you back to Konoha. He raised his hand pointing his index finger at Jiraiya and said, Sweden. Suiryuso, water release, water flowing lance. The water in the sea started shooting water spears at Jiraiya, who saw it and started dodging the attack. Water spears keep launching from the sea and attacking the sage, who kept dodging and then jumped to avoid it, but then cursed and used a quick shunshin to avoid the ones that were about to attack him and resumed to dodging the spears again. Jumping again to avoid it, Naruto used this opportunity to use another jutsu to trap him. Sweden. Kuki Suiro, water release, atmospheric water prison. Drawing the water out of the air, he formed it into a sphere around Jiraiya, trapping him in it. Jiraiya was surprised that he was trapped and thought, not only wind but he is also able to control the water masterfully as well. Naruto then controlled the sphere of water to crash to the sand below. It crashed with an explosion of water and sand. Jiraiya struggled to stand up, and when he managed to stand he suddenly felt pain in his back and was sent flying. He crashed towards the sand, sending it everywhere. He looked back and saw Naruto waving at him with grin before he felt pain in his side and was again sent flying back to his previous spot. He was sweating and panting hard from the sudden pains and blows to him. He didn't see it or felt his presence at all. He struggled to stand and look towards where Naruto was. He was grinning and waving at him. When did he move? I didn't even see any sign of him moving or sense him at all. This speed, not even the Hiraishin, flying thunder god, can match it. It doesn't even give a hint as to where he will appear next, like the Hiraishin leaving a yellow flash and appearing in a yellow flash. Jiraiya said, you know, you totally surpassed your father in the speed department. I mean, he was the fastest shinobi with his Hiraishin, but you just appear and disappear without even someone like me sensing you, and you don't even give a hint as to where you'll appear next. You truly have surpassed your father, Naruto. With a smile at the end. Naruto all this time has been silent and his hair shadowed his eyes, preventing it to be seen. Then he spoke, his tone hollow, you done? Jiraiya was confused at the tone but nodded. I see. Then allow me to speak my part then. Naruto raised his head and Jiraiya saw his eyes turned cold and seemed to glow and was glaring at him while killing intent was rolling off him in waves and the area seemed to shake. The sage was feeling a pressure crushing on him and was scared and even more confused at why he reacting like these. Jiraiya, first thing, don't compare me to that worm. I have surpassed him in every sense of the word and I am beyond your level and his. I'm in a league of my own that is unsurpassed by mortal, demon or God's hand. None of you ants crawling on the ground can ever hope to match me and my powers. Only those that are on my level or below a little are capable of matching me. None of you insects are worth my time. Naruto said coldly. He dashed forward, hitting Jiraiya in the gut with a punch. He hunched over, spitting blood, and stumbled back a little before collapsing on his knees, supporting himself on his hands. And second, try the front door next time. Maybe you won't be beaten like this if you do. Naruto said, loosing his coldness a little before kicking Jiraiya away. The sage was being flung like a ragdoll a distance away. He loses his strength just from being punched in the gut by Naruto. Jiraiya groaned at the pain he had been inflicted by Naruto. Even raising his head is becoming difficult. He looked into Naruto's eyes and saw them staring back at him blankly. Naruto raised his hand and the space around Jiraiya started contorting and distorting. I may hate them, but I don't hate the children. They may be the cause of it, but, at first they decided to abandon me and have a happy live without their accursed child. Maybe they don't want me, who knows what they're thinking. Tell them this, Jiraiya. I will get them for the misfortune that befall me, and the pain and torture that I suffered will be returned by 100-fold. Remember, I will break them, to let them know the true meaning of pain. That was all Jiraiya heard before his world went dark. Naruto saw that the man was unconscious and used Jigen Tenso, dimensional transfer, to send him to Konoha. He looked at the spot for a few moments before he sighed. He then turned around and went back home. Konoha. At the gates of Konoha, two Chunin guards by the name of Izumo and Katetsu were sitting in their seats in the guard post, bored out of their mind. They were just sitting there watching the air and space in front of them, nothing better to do. But good thing too, as they noticed that the air seems to shimmer. The wind started picking up, going faster, faster and faster until it formed a dome of wind at the gates. This occurrence of course did not escape the shinobi's attention. This happening gathered a crowd of shinobi, even the Hokage. Tsunade, Minato and Kushina were seeing this happening and was wondering what was it. The dome of wind suddenly stopped and revealed to the mass of shinobi the body of Jiraiya. They were shocked at the sight, and Tsunade, being the first to recompose herself, quickly ran forward, checking the body of her teammate and ran a diagnostic jutsu. Minato and Kushina recovered from their stupor and rushed forward as well to check on the pervert's being. Tsunade finished her diagnostic and turned to the two and said, "Don't worry, nothing bad happened to him. It seems like someone managed to beat him unconscious, though the question is who?" Minato and Kushina sighed in relief but looked at each other, thinking about the person who did this. Tsunade carried Jiraiya and stood up and said, "I'm going to take him to the hospital. We'll just have to wait for him to wake up and tell us who," but was interrupted by a groan and turned to look at Jiraiya, who was starting to wake. Tsunade quickly set him down and wait for him to wake completely. The sage slowly opened his eyes and saw the sight of Tsunade, Minato, Kushina and a mass of shinobi surrounding him. The first thing that went through his mind and out his mouth was, "Quite a reception I have, Haim." Minato said, "Well, sensei, considering the entrance you made and the condition you were in and your status as a Sannin, it's bound to attract attention, especially when you were laying on the ground unconscious." "What happened?" Jiraiya groaned and rubbed his temple. Sitting up straight, cross-legged, he said, "Well, I did my job and infiltrated Uzu Ag," but was interrupted by Kushina saying, "You managed to infiltrate it. What was it like? Was it anything like in the past, or did it change?" Jiraiya held up a hand to stop her onslaught of questions and said, "Kushina, I know you're excited, but calm down. Honestly, I didn't see much. I was in a field, but what I could glance before I was attacked, I did saw tall buildings like the ones in AIM, but they looked different from what I could tell." Kushina was a bit disappointed but was still happy knowing the fact that her homeland was really revived. Now no more interruptions. "As I was saying, I managed to infiltrate, but I was found out immediately with a bang. It alerted them and the civilians were running away from the site. I could already sense the shinobi coming towards me, and you won't believe this, their chakra was huge, probably high Junin level to mid Anbu level. But one of them wasn't that one had a reserve above a cage." Jiraiya said, relaying everything he experienced, making the shinobi pale even further, making them look like ghosts. Jiraiya continued, "Her abilities with fire exceeded even the Uchiha clan, but then came the cage, or what I assumed he is, considering his chakra levels exceeded hers by many times, comparable to a Biju. The shinobi present was looking more like a ghost now. They just couldn't believe someone with chakra reserves that big existed other than a Jinchuriki. Surprising thing is, I know who he is and he knows who I am. And I don't meant my reputation as Sannin at that, I once teach him after all." They were wondering who was it until Tsunade said, "Jiraiya, you once had a genin team, but it's not them, right? I mean, Minato is here and Sume and Hiyashi are also here. Then the orphans that you trained. Nagato and Yahiko died and Konan is in AIM, so it's not them. The only remaining one is Naruto." Realization dawned on her and the shinobis. She turned her gaze to the sage with hope in her eyes. Not only her but Minato and Kushina as well, and those who were close to him. Jiraiya, seeing their looks, said, "Yes, it was him. I saw Naruto and he changed. Though in my opinion his appearance changed the most though. I still can't believe the Gaki would turn out that way though, makes him look feminine." Mumbling halfway into his speech, Kushina was in tears, not tears of sadness but of happiness. Finally, 8 years had gone by without a piece of news about her son, and now finally, she heard news that he is alive and is a cage of her homeland. She couldn't be more proud of him today. She hugged Minato tightly and felt him return the hug. Minato was in tears of happiness in hearing the news of his son being alive. He returned the hug to Kushina knowing she was happy as well. Jiraiya, Tsunade and the shinobis were smiling at the two, knowing the news meant more than anything to them to know that their son is alive. Jiraiya then frowned, knowing what he's going to say next will probably hurt them more, or like Naruto said, break them, just that he didn't know is it through this way or another. He cleared his throat, catching their attention. He then began to continue his experience, hoping for the best for the outcome. Minutes passed as the sage told them about his fight with Naruto and the defense mechanisms of the village had. They were shocked at the news, knowing now that the revived Uzugakure no Sato was practically impossible to infiltrate unless they have some way to counter the seals placed on the village. He then continued about his fight with Naruto, about his mastery over his elements and the speed he displayed surpassing the Hiraishin. Minato was shocked but was proud that his son surpassed him. Then Jiraiya got to the final part of their fight, the words spoken and the reaction of Naruto. Minato and Kushina was beyond shocked, and they were close to tears again, especially Kushina. Hearing the words spoken from the sage who heard it directly from the source, their son, was heart-wrenching and heartbreaking for them. By the end of the speech, Minato and Kushina were on their knees bawling their eyes out. More so for Kushina, as tears cascaded down their faces with the words resounding in their heads. The shinobis were shocked, and some were looking at the couple with disgust for abandoning their child. Tsunade looked to Jiraiya and saw that his face was expressing a solemn expression. She sighed and shakes her head, mentally blaming Minato for the stupid plan of his of leaving Naruto to the wolves and taking Kushina with her. She also mentally blamed Kushina for it as well, knowing better what the life of a Jinchuriki was as she herself was once, and yet she had gone and done something stupid. Tsunade sighed again and told the two to go home before taking Jiraiya to the hospital. The shinobis soon began to leave as well, leaving the couple there still on their knees and crying, blaming themselves for their stupidities. Uzugakure no Sato. 4 days had passed since then, and Naruto was in his home wearing a red t-shirt and black shorts, sitting on his sofa with a bored expression on his face. He picked up his tea from the glass table and sipped it, thinking what he should do for the day. He looked at the clock and saw that it was 2 p.m. and idly thought, Hikari should be back by now from her walk and Kikyo should be stopping her training as well. He sipped his tea again and heard the door open. He turned and saw Hikari coming in wearing a yellow sundress with flowers decorating it, and saw Naruto and smiled. She made her way to the sofa and sat down next to him and said, "Having a good day, Naruto-kun?" Putting the cup down, he turned to her and replied, "A little bored." "Hey, why don't we spar? It's been a long time since we fought, how about it?" With a smile, Hikari seems to think about it before nodding, saying, "Well, allow me to go change and I'll be right there." Naruto grinned and nodded eagerly before leaving towards the training dojo. Training dojo. The dojo is a huge field expanding beyond the normal, completed with a sky with clouds and some trees, even due to the Kuokan Yugami Fuin, spatial distortion seal, to expand the space in the room, and the Renkei Fuin, linking seal, and Tenisei Fuin, displacement seal, to connect and move one place and then transferring it to this dojo, with the sky being artificial. That, and the sparring matches always end up with wide-scale destruction with huge explosions here and there. Naruto, entering the spatial altered dojo, saw that Kikyo was resting on the grass. He walked over to her and saw that she was sleeping, probably due to exhaustion. She was wearing a red and black trench coat with the buttons buttoned around her e-cup, leaving the rest unbuttoned, exposing her mid-rift, and orange pants with a belt hung loosely with black shinobi sandals. Raising a brow, wondering to what extent did she train herself to, looked out to the field and saw that many craters of all sizes were present, and some were even smoking. Blinking once, Naruto shook his head and chuckled. Feeling a presence behind, Naruto turned slightly looking over his shoulder and saw that Hikari changed to her battle outfit and was shaking her head, probably seeing the damage Kikyo did with her training. Hikari was now wearing a black sleeveless top with golden lines and yellow form-fitting pants with black lines traveling down the side with a yellow and black trench coat strap on her waist, wearing black combat boots. Hikari said, "Kikyo always overdoes things even in training. I always had to heal her in some cases, but the extent of injuries she has, I have no idea how she got them through training." She shakes her head again. Naruto chuckled and picked up Kikyo bridal style, not disturbing her in the slightest as she continued sleeping, and place her under a tree and erect a silencing barrier around her to prevent the noise of battle from reaching her. He then blurred back to the field with a mist now covering his form. The mist soon dissipated, showing his outfit change. He is now wearing a red zipped-up shirt with a black outlines around the hem of the shirt and sleeves with the same colors on his pants, with a icy blue trench coat with a design that make it seems like it's a blizzard, with black combat boots. The two stare at each other with an unnatural wind blowing, making their respective trench coats bellow. They then shoot off at god-like speeds, closing the distance between them in an instant with their fists launched at each other. A shockwave ripped through the field with a resounding explosion as the ground beneath them formed a small crater around them. They both jumped back, but Naruto then jumped into the air, making a clawing motion with his left hand, and Hikari quickly dodged. The area where Hikari was previously standing on suddenly had 5 huge claw marks on them, like the wind shredded the ground. Hikari retaliated by charging lightning chakra into her leg and kick out. Raiden. Raijinkuri, lightning release. Lightning God Slicer. A huge wave of lightning released from her legs and fly towards Naruto. Naruto, seemingly still on air, brought both hands and clapped loudly, and at the point of impact releases wind chakra, amplifying it, making it sound like a thunderclap, cancelling Hikari's attack. Naruto then followed up with separating his palms away, where a lance of wind appeared before grabbing it and throw it at Hikari at supersonic speeds that broke the sound barriers. Hikari, seeing the danger, quickly put both hands palm opened in front of her and channeled lightning chakra and said, "Raiden. Shishi Hoko, lightning release. Lion roar." A lion's roar roared out with a pulse of lightning, filling the air in front her with electricity and also cancelling the spear of wind. Hikari charged lightning chakra into both her arms and swing out, launching 2 yellow crescent waves towards Naruto. Raiden. Soraya, lightning release. Twin lightning wave. The yellow waves fly towards Naruto, who charged his arm with wind chakra and with a sweeping motion launches a huge blast of wind that slams into Hikari's jutsu, but instead of cancelling it, it shredded the lightning jutsu and continued towards Hikari. Said target saw this, was not surprised that her lightning jutsu was shredded by a wind jutsu, and held out a hand where lightning chakra was gathering, spinning and forming into a sphere. She then compressed the lightning sphere into marble-sized and strike the blast of shredding wind, exclaiming, "Raiden. Rasengan, lightning release, spiraling sphere." The marble-sized lightning Rasengan hit the blast of wind and dispersed before concentrating. Now streams of light crackling with electricity are spiraling around the small marble of lightning, which Hikari pointed to Naruto, who saw the danger as shown by his slight widening of his eyes. Hikari then said, "Eat this and get blasted to heaven, Naruto-kun." Raiden. Raishinho, lightning release, lightning divine cannon. From the marble-sized Rasengan shoots out a huge beam of lightning that blasts towards Naruto, who held out a hand to stop it, but the blast enveloped him and threw him all the way to the sky. The beam lasted a little more longer before slowly disappearing. The spot where Naruto was smoking, hiding was within. Hikari thought she got him, but was proven wrong when the smoke cleared, showing Naruto with his hand outstretched, smoking and a little burned, but that soon started to heal, leaving perfectly tanned skin. He was smiling and looked at his hand, which blocked the jutsu from hitting him, now healed, but still felt a slight numbing, but that soon vanished. Naruto said, "You know, that actually got to me. Not many jutsus or attacks actually gets to me unless there's a lot of chakra or power behind them." Not bad at all, Hikari-chan." Hikari smiled and said, "Well, I am your grandmother and also your student. It still feels weird that I'm actually learning from my own grandson and being your lover." Naruto chuckled and scratched his head with a sheepish grin and said, "Well, I didn't know you were my grandma at that time until I learned about it and told you. I'm surprised that you still continued loving me even after knowing the truth, and I don't mean it in a familial way." Hikari giggled and said, "Well, even if you were my grandson, the love I felt before knowing was real, and after knowing, instead of expecting to feel disgusted and depressed, I felt even more attracted to you. I love you that much, Naruto-kun." Naruto smiled, a genuine smile that on his feminine-looking face looked damn pretty and attractive, that made Hikari blushed. Then a clapping sound was heard, and they looked towards where the sound was permeating from and saw that Kikyo was awake and was the one clapping with a smile. She stopped clapping and stepped out of the barrier, which shattered like glass to a million pieces, said, "Nice speech there, Hikari. You know, Naruto, when you were helping me adjust to the world, I felt that even though I know that you were my grandson, I felt a small attraction to you, and with time passing and I get to know you more better, I felt that small attraction grow into something I never thought I would experience and felt again. Despite how weird it is, I'll still say it. I love you, Naruto." With a loving smile, Naruto floated back down and had a smile with tears streaking down from his eyes. Hikari and Kikyo both wiped the tears away and hugged him. Naruto hugged them back and was lightly sobbing. They stayed like that for a while before pulling away. Naruto's eyes were a little watery with a smile on his face. "Arigato, Hikari-chan, Kikyo-chan. Never in my life have I heard those special words spoken with so much emotion, and towards me at that. I'm so happy." He smiled a happy smile with his eyes closed and with his hair framing his face, giving it a feminine look. Naruto really looked very pretty and beautiful. He then wiped away the remainder of his tears and looked at the women before him with a happy smile and said, "Well, since Kikyo-chan's awaken up, would you like to join us in our spar?" Kikyo smiled and nodded her head. Naruto grinned before blurring the distance away, while Hikari and Kikyo just stood loosely. Kikyo began with palming the ground with water chakra imbued and shouted, "Suiten! Bakufu Shochu, water release! Waterfall rising pillar!" Large pillars of water exploded out of the ground going towards Naruto. Hikari copied the same action and flowed her lightning chakra towards the ground, towards the water pillar. The water pillars, now having lightning chakra, changed into a whitish yellow crackled with high voltage of electricity shocking and boiling the water, and they both shouted, "Kiyome! Koto no Jutsu, resonance! Light tower technique!" The electrified pillar of water now glowed a blinding white that Naruto had to narrow his eyes and could feel the shaking of the ground, indicating that he better move lest he got shocked. A split second later rose the white pillar at the spot Naruto was previously on that seemed higher than the other pillars. The pillars soon disappeared with no traces of Naruto except a scorched ground. Hikari and Kikyo both knew that Naruto escaped their combined technique and is now either moving around or hiding somewhere. Their answer soon came to them when they saw the artificial sky glowed red at certain spots. Soon 5 huge golden fireballs the size of a meteorite came shooting down towards them, intending on reaching ground or crushing them. Hikari and Kikyo both looked at each other and nodded before shooting off towards the meteorite with their respective flying methods. Hikari converted her lightning chakra into an electromagnetic field around her body, repelling the Earth's own electromagnetic field and cancelling the gravitational field and force on her, allowing her to levitate off the ground. She then released a burst of electromagnetic energy and shoots off towards the skies. Kikyo gathered the water molecules around her legs and added her own water chakra in it. A blue aura surrounded her body due to the concentration of what she was doing, and a ring of water chakras surrounded her. She crouched slightly before releasing all the chakra she had gathered in her legs in a huge burst, rocketing her to the sky, but as she did so, she continued gathering more water molecules to fuel her flight, not that she needed any more other than just adding water chakra to the gathered molecules for continuous flight. Hikari and Kikyo both shot through the air and destroyed the golden fireballs with huge amount of their elemental chakra in their hands, and seeing beyond the clouds was Naruto, cross-armed with a smile on his face. Ice materialized around him in the hundreds, forming ice shards, pointing towards them before saying the technique which he didn't do a while ago with the battle with Hikari. Hyaden. Quarry aim, ice release, ice rain. The ice shards, now numbering in the thousands, shoot forward, raining icicles on the two at rapid speed. Said two saw this and halt their flight in midair, both preparing to counter the raining icicles. Huge amount of lightning chakra was gathered and swirled around the empty space between the palms that was brought together, and Kikyo was doing the same with water chakra. Naruto saw the two preparing something and just smiled. "Let's see what you're going to do now." The blonde and the redhead at the same time both released their technique towards the raining ice of death. They both shot their hands out and shouted, Raiden. Kariryu, lightning release. Swirling lightning current, Sweden. Razan Shio, water release. Spiraling tide. The gathered lightning and water chakra blast out, forming a swirl of lightning and water in the air against the falling icicles. Both techniques, the same yet of different elements, clashed against the icicles and shredding through them. Naruto merely reformed and created new icicles to continued shooting towards the countering techniques. He knew what he was doing was only delaying the time before both techniques collide with him, but he wanted to see what will happen if he continued doing this. The techniques both continued obliterating the falling ice, but it seems to be a slow progress. Kikyo turned to Hikari and spoke with an annoyed tone, we're making slow progress at this rate. Naruto's merely stalling by bombarding this ice on us. How about we quickly destroyed them before Naruto could create more to replace the destroyed ones? Hikari nodded and said with a smile, a one-hit jutsu to clear the path is good, but I have a better idea. Kikyo was confused but interested, so she leaned in to hear what her fellow grandmother had thought up. Naruto saw that the two were discussing something and smiled. He could hear what they were discussing if he wanted with his enhanced hearing, but blocked that so that he could see what they cooked up instead of expecting it. Kikyo was now grinning from ear to ear at the plan Hikari thought up. She leaned back and grinned and said, Hikari, that was genius. Let's do this and the look on Naruto will surely be one to be remembered. Hikari was smiling and nodding to the praise on the last part. They both then concentrate more to execute their plan. The swirl of lightning and water both slowly become more bigger as more elemental chakra was added in as they slowly gyrate towards one another. Lightning traveled through the water, electrifying it and strengthening it as the water flowed through the lightning currents, melting with it. Both jutsu was huge before, but now that they're combined along with the additional chakra put in, it's now more bigger than a Ferris wheel, twice the size of it. Naruto was shocked and stunned with jaws dropped. Although he is a god and now immortal, he is still able to experience pain. Nothing could kill him, well, nothing that he knew of. But those on his level, a god or his students, could actually hurt him, and a whole lot of hurt and pain did they give him. And right now he is witnessing something that could actually bring that whole lot of pain to him and actually hurt him if he didn't do something about it. He cursed himself for not actually listening in on their planning and do something about it, and now he's going to experience a whole lot of pain, but not that if he got anything to say about it. The giant than a Ferris wheel swirl of lightning and water is now destroying all the icicles due to it affecting the air around. The air is now filled and charged with extreme high voltage of electricity that cracked and destroyed the falling ice. Kiyome. Raisu Daryu. Resonance. Lightning water grand current. Hikari and Kikyo both exclaimed. They were now enjoying the look on Naruto's face and was definitely remembering it, burning the image into their heads. But the true surprise has yet to come. Controlling their flight and the use of jutsus, and now this takes a lot of concentration and normal people would have collapsed due to exhaustion, especially the jutsus. The jutsus were all high-ranked, either it's AA or S-ranked jutsus, especially the Kiyome jutsu, which takes a lot of skill, chakra and concentration to perform. The Raisu Daryu is a high-leveled Kiyome jutsu that takes a ton of chakra and concentration that will kill even a cage due to the beyond cage level chakra needed. The jutsus they're using are considered a kinjutsu to a shinobi village, including the 5 great nations, but to them, Naruto, Kikyo, Hikari, Mira, Hana and Shinya and a few others are able to use them to their fullest without repercussion. But the jutsu the two are going to perform now is a even more powerful and high-leveled Kiyome jutsu, and they're intending to use it on Naruto. Hikari and Kikyo's body faced each other with their hands aligning parallel to each other. They concentrated, lightning and water chakra gathered at the space between their aligned palms and they formed it into a lance, but they're not done. They put in more elemental chakra, causing the lance to grow longer and bigger and applying shape manipulation to it, change its shape. The tip changed to a pointed cross with the pointed tip more longer and 2 wing blade-like protrusions near the tip with 3 rings of chakra below the tip, and the other end changed to a pointed tip curving in a bit. Chakra released from the two and the jutsu distorted the air and space around them. Sparks of lightning appeared here and there and the air was so heavy filled with electricity. Naruto, in the midst of planning his next move, saw the lance Hikari and Kikyo generated paled. He thought, they really are planning to injure me to the greatest extent they could. Shit, what to do, what to use. Maybe I'll use that, just add a little more chakra to it. Decided on what to do, he prepared himself. The Raisu Daryu is now closing in on Naruto, but he concentrated on the counter he decided to use, ignored it for now. As for the ladies, Hikari and Kikyo are almost charging the technique to completion. A few seconds later, the techniques are fully charged for both sides and prepared to launch against each other. Hikari and Kikyo felt their clothes rustle due to the huge wind generated due to their technique and straightened themselves to throw the lance. Naruto reared back his arm charged with a chakra that seems to feel empty in endless nothingness. The duo then throw the lance towards Naruto and the previously fired jutsu and shouted, Kiyome, Raisujin no Shinso, Resonance. Divine Spear of the Lightning Water God. The lance of dense lightning and water chakras soared through the air with a roar at breakneck speeds, breaking the sound barriers heading towards Naruto. Naruto brought forward the arm that was reared back and aimed his opened palm at the gigantic swirl of lightning and water and the incoming spear, prepared to meet it with his own. His eyes glowed with power and exclaimed in a booming voice announcing his technique, Kuden. Suiraku Garando, Void Release, Crashing Void. An immense pressure suddenly crashed into the gigantic swirl with a thunderous boom, grinding it into nothingness before slamming into the spear behind it with an even more thunderous boom. The two techniques battled for dominance, each gaining ground and lose them the next instant. A battle struggle for power between AS bordering on sulfur monosulfide ranked and AA ranked jutsu. Hikari, Kikyo and Naruto struggled to push forward their techniques or cancelled them to gain a winning edge. Coincidentally, all of them thought and intended to end the struggle right now, so they pushed as much chakra and power into their respective jutsus and push. GRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRR jutsus pushed against each other until they can't and explode. The explosion uplifted rocks and debris and sent them all into the air or flying. The explosion lasted for a few more moments before settling down. Once the smoke cleared, there was gigantic crater 5 kilometers wide, 1.5 kilometers in depth. Hikari and Kikyo floated back down on one side of the crater, panting slightly, and Naruto on the other, able to see each other clearly. He looked at the crater and made a mental note to activate the Jiko Shufuku Fuin, self-repairing seal, to make the crater disappear. He snapped his head up when he sensed new presences enter the vicinity and ones he was familiar with. Hikari and Kikyo both sensed it as well and looked behind them to see the other three who was living in the compound. The three smiled. Naruto saw the three together and thought with a smirk, well. Team Legend those three could tear apart of the elemental nations by themselves. Plus Kikyo and Hikari, Team Tenkai, have an ocean. Hey, this could get interesting. Hana, Mira and Shinya was walking towards the battlefield, on Kikyo's and Hikari's side. Hana was wearing a long green top that stopped below her thigh with vines, thorns and flowers design in white and brown baggy pants with many pockets and a reinforced with seals high heels. Naruto's sweat dropped at that. Only she could fight while wearing high heels. I don't think the others could though, even in my female form I have trouble fighting in it. Mira was wearing a black sweater with a red swirl in the middle and black pants with half the length of it melding into red and red combat boots. Jewel earrings on both ears having a ruby in it. A black and red haori over her frame. Shinya was wearing a silver kimono top with the left side longer that reached to her knees with a dragon design and a silver hakama pants with black and red streaks and black shinobi sandals. The three stopped at Team Tenkai's side and looked at the crater. Mira whistled and said, "You guys sure aren't holding back Naruto shake his head. Actually Kikyo and Hikari was the one who launched all the big-ass high-level jutsus. All I did was retaliate with a ranked Kuten jutsu." Hana was not surprised. The two always did like huge-scale destruction along with jutsus that fit the criteria. She just shakes her head, her hair swaying with the action. Shinya remained silent before unexpectedly shot off towards Naruto. In response, he just blinked before shooting a ball of golden fire towards her from his hands. The others were surprised that Shinya suddenly shot off, and the most verbal of them was Mira. "Hey Shinya, that's not fair. Don't go getting all the action without all of us. With an unspoken signal, they all shot forward heading towards Naruto. Said person was blinking his eyes away with a stumped expression before shooting more golden fireballs. Shinya at the head of the group just sent a little bit of chakra to her eyes and muttered, Shinra Tensai, heavenly subjugation of the omnipresent god. The fireballs heading towards the girls were suddenly vanquished, not leaving a trace. Naruto, seeing that course of action did not work, blinked once before sweeping his hands, sending a huge gale of wind blowing them back. The girls all righted themselves in mid-air and Mira gathered chakra before shouting, Kaden, Kankyu Tenka, fire release, environmental ignition. Fire suddenly combusted around Naruto before exploding in a 5-meter explosion. Kikyo then channeled chakra pointing towards the burning inferno and shouted, Fuuden, Ukazi Furyoku, wind release, gale wind force. The burning inferno turned into something similar of a volcanic eruption. But the flames suddenly dispersed with a pulse of wind from Naruto, who remained unscathed. He shot forward at speeds unknown that the five could not see and slammed into Kikyo's gut with a punch powered by earth chakra that sends her flying like a bullet near the edge of the crater and flipped forward and nailing Hikari and Hana with both legs, which shoots them off outside of the crater 5 meters away before blurring away only to appear in front of Mira, sending a roundhouse kick sending her flying towards the other side of the crater before using the momentum to launch a kick towards Shinya's, who flew back to stop Naruto. Gut knocking the air out of her, followed with a kick to the chin sending her away. All this happened in 4 seconds. Utilizing his speed, Naruto knocked them away in 4 seconds. Resounding booms indicated their landing was huge and painful. Naruto looked around, spotting the girls and thinking who to go after first. He turned around sharply and sliced a wooden spike that was about to impale him with his hands. Many wooden spikes soon flew out of the smoke from Hana's position. Naruto narrowed his eyes slightly before wind chakra exploded out of him and shooting towards the wooden spikes like a meteor. His wind chakra destroying and cutting the spikes heading his way. The smoke from Hana's position cleared away, revealing her standing there and with his eyes, able to see wood chakra flowing from her legs to the ground and forming the wooden spikes. Naruto then increased the output of wind chakra around him, making it seem like his descend like a meteor with him at the center and wind surrounding him like the flames surrounding a meteor descending, thus making him accelerate. Hana saw his descend becoming faster, surround herself with light green with flecks of brown wood chakra and jumped away, leaving a trail of energy behind as she did. Naruto's descend and landing cracked and upturned the ground, sending a shockwave, his eyes glowing. He stood to his full height, his aura of wind chakra still surrounding him. His eyes glowed even brighter and the wind chakra surrounding him released itself, sending an even bigger shockwave that sends dust and small debris away. Naruto looked around and spotted Hana a distance away. He took a step forward before vines and thorns suddenly sprouted from the ground, wrapping around him, constricting his movement. The thorns not even cutting into his skin but still proved to be an annoyance, as it felt like a needle poking him without entering his skin at all. Chakra exploded out of him, forming an aura, but this time instead of light green wind chakra that cuts, this one's orange-red bordering on golden that instantly turns the vines and thorns into ashes. Naruto kept the aura before exploding forward with great force, destroying his previous spot and forming a large crater towards Hana. Wisps of orange flames appeared around him before suddenly expanding to basketball size and shoots away at Hana. The wood user saw this and pulled the moisture in the air and formed it into rings before sending it towards the fireballs. Sweden. Suiwakiri no Jutsu, water release, water ring slicer technique. The rings of water impacted the fireballs, causing steam to appear. Naruto with his flaming aura charged through the steam and out of it in an instant before cancelling his aura and sends a punch to Hana. She blocks the attack with her left forearm but had to strain to stand as the strength behind the punch was enormous and swatted it away before sending a flurry of punches at Naruto. He blocked, countered and swatted away at the punches before blurring away with pure speed and appeared behind her and was about to chop her neck before sensing something that makes his hair on both the head and neck stands. He turned and saw a lion made out of lightning not 3 inches away from his face. He was about to deal with the lightning creation before catching the punch heading towards his head from the side and going on a new course of plan, flung Hana towards the lightning-made lion and jumped away but had to duck under a kick and rolled away. Hana and the lightning lion made contact and sends millions of voltage through her, but then she poofed, indicating her as a Cage Bunshin, shadow clone. Naruto then had to roll away again as a lightning-coated punch aimed at him but missed and hit the earth, discharging the lightning. He jumped to the air immediately after he rolled away and saw that Hikari was the one who attacked him. Conjuring a golden fireball in his hand, then adding wind chakra to it, a fireball the size of a wrecking ball with more power than it appeared in his hand, and he threw at the two. Seeing the fireball, Hana and Hikari both prepared to either block or counter it when they saw a swirl in the air. Mira appeared out of her space-time technique in a swirly fashion and saw a fireball heading towards her and the two behind her. She gathered chakra in her eyes, changing it into a form her previous life possessed. The Ain Mangekyu Sharingan, Eternal Kaleidoscope Copywheel Eye, of Uchiha Madara now appeared within her eyes. She used the Dujutsu's ability to suck in matter to a different dimension to absorb the fireball. Now using both eyes for the technique, the speed of the suction increased and a lot more faster as well. Upon completely absorbing the flames, she looked towards the space behind Naruto, who had a small widening of his eyes in surprise and opened the dimensional gateway, releasing Naruto's own technique on himself. Naruto, sensing the twist and turn of the space behind as well as the heat, quickly turned just in time to stop his own attack from colliding with him with his palm and crushed it, making it dispersed. He quickly back in time to narrowly dodged an attack to his head by slightly tilting his head to the side where a stream of lightning shot past. Hearing the sound of feet stamping ground, he saw that 3 huge dragons made out of mud rose from the earth with red eyes and white inside their mouths. Doden. Doryuden no Jutsu, Earth Release, Earth Dragon Missile Technique. Hana announced. The mud dragons shot a dozen of mud balls at a rapid speed at Naruto, who was cautious of the others joining the attack, as well made the air in front of him from the ground up to a bit higher of him in the air distort and contort. The mud bullets hits the distorted air and went through, disappearing into it. Hana and the other two blinked at what was happening before realizing what the technique used was. Naruto smiled as his technique worked. Kuden. Shokuaheki, Void Release, Rising Void Wall. A defensive technique of the void element that distorts the air, but its real purpose is to send whatever hits the wall into the void, Naruto thought. And now to release whatever has been sent to the nothingness. Hana stopped her technique, which the mud dragon stopped firing and dropped back to being just mud. Naruto, taking this chance, implement his technique in action. The air distorted even more than before, like it is unrest. The girls were wary now that they saw what happened. Naruto smiled and said, I believe now it is my turn. Kuso Jigen Kaihou. Muko Kara Shutsugan, Void Element Dimension Release. Emergence from within the void. The projectiles of mud that was absorbed by the void wall suddenly was released and shot back from the distorted air. Knowing that her ability would be useless right now, Mira and the others quickly dodged around, trying to avoid the reflected technique. Naruto was watching in amusement how they were dodging and running around like headless chickens that he let out a chuckle. But that chuckle quickly died down as he had to ditch the air and quickly land on the ground, as his previous spot was now speared by water. Looking around, Naruto could not find the culprit, stretched his senses wide to sense her. Sensing her and where she is, raised a wall of earth with a slight tap of the ground behind him and heard flesh hitting rock and the hiss of pain that escaped the culprit. He smirked as he added more chakra to the earth wall, and the hiss of pain was music to his ears. But again that smirk died down quickly as he also sensed the one behind the earthen wall was now replaced with another presence. Hearing the slight muttering of Shinrit Tensai, Naruto's eye flew open as his back was hit with the pieces of earth that was once part of his technique as he flew forward at incredible speed. Fuck, damn you Shinya, Naruto yelled while still flying through the air. He righted himself and landed perfectly, head down, and kicked forward, hitting seemingly hit nothing but air, but it had the intended effect he wanted. A shockwave blast forward, impacting a water dragon, making it ripple and finally reduced to droplets of water with a huge explosion. Naruto raised his head, showing his eyes glowing brighter than before and his chakra skyrocketing, literally. Chakra exploded out of his body and rose to the sky. Hikari, Kikyo, Hana, Mira and Shinya felt the chakra spike, and seeing it before them knows that Naruto is now getting serious. Naruto receded his chakra, but his eyes still glowing stretched out his left arm to the side, and a Masamune sword longer than him appeared out of thin air. The handle is 1 feet long and is of a obsidian black color with red tassels at the end with a circular guard decorated with a spiral design and the blade being 6 feet 10 that shined brightly and reflected clearly. A cruel smirk appeared on his face slowly and with his eyes glowing, makes it a very terrifying visage. The 5 seeing this couldn't help but shiver slightly but quickly steeled themselves and summoned their own respective weapons. Hikari's weapon is a nodashi with the handle a yellow color like lightning with lightning bolt symbols etched into it with a cross-shaped guard and the blade itself is a obsidian black like the night that shines in light. Kikyo's weapon is a nodashi with a red hilt with her clan's symbol etched into it in black with a circular guard with a spiral design and the blade being oceanic blue with waves pattern along the edges. Hana's weapon is also a nodashi with the handle being earthen brown with diamond designs etched with a flower-shaped guard and the blade being a forest green. Mira's weapon is a nodashi with a black handle with circles and a 3-pronged shuriken guard with a red blade. Shinya's weapon, another nodashi with a gray handle with thin silver threads wrapping around it with a square guard with a cross in it and the blade being a mix of red and black. Naruto seeing them drawing their weapons in response to him drawing his, let out a feral smirk and, surprising them by releasing a high-end sword technique at them. Kaimetsu Ryu. Kazuchi, World Slayer style, scarring earth. An overhead swing to the ground cause a gigantic slash that raced towards the 5 destroying the earth. The 5 paled like a ghost but with all their speed managed to dodge the elemental destroyer wave by a hair's breadth. The technique ended not hitting its intended targets. The path the slash traveled tore a crevice into place with huge pieces of earth upturned around it. Truly a technique well earned and placed in the style that, destroy the world. The girls all had wide eyes in shock. They turned towards where Naruto was but couldn't see him when they felt a presence above them. Naruto was above them about to bring down his sword and released a cutting wave from it. They again dodged but this time with the intention of retaliating back. Kikyo charged her blade with water chakra and swing it in the direction of Naruto. Uzumaki Ryu Itu. Suiryuha, whirlpool-style first blade. Water dragon wave. A wave of 5 water dragon appeared out of the slash and raced forward attacking Naruto. Naruto merely swing his sword and the dragons vanished before swinging again releasing a wave towards her. His attack was intercepted by another wave and heard. Raisetsu, lightning slash. Turning he saw a giant wave of lightning heading towards him but also swing his blade with a bit more effort splitting the attack and continuing towards Hikari. She dodged the attack. Hana went up and swing her sword in a huge arc causing multiple green tendrils sprouting from the ground and aiming at Naruto. He dodged and weaved through them and sent a giant wave of air towards her. Mira appeared in front of Hana and charged fire chakra into her blade and swing upwards. Shokaryu, rising fire dragon. Fire erupted out of the earth forming a dragon. The dragon raced towards Naruto who simply put out a hand and pushed. The fire dragon disappeared but Mira could feel the pressure increasing. She quickly dodged and seeing a crater made by the push Naruto made doubled her speed and moved a distance away. Feeling a presence heading his way at fast speeds, Naruto turned and clashed swords with Shinya. The two struggled for a while before jumping back. Naruto immediately launched multiple slashes that flew towards Shinya who retaliated by entering a Batu Iajutsu. Art of sheathing and unsheathing in quick draw. Stance and unsheathed from her air sheath sending a huge arc that cancelled all the slashes. Feeling presences surrounding him, he looked around and saw that all the girls surrounded him. He smirked before dive dropping. The girls were a bit shocked but soon joined him. Falling towards the ground, Naruto looked back and saw them following him. As he neared the ground, just an inch before crashing he swerved upwards at the last moment. Creating 5 wrecking ball-sized balls of wind, he sent them flying at the ladies. They merely dodged or weaved through them and continued after him launching their own elemental attacks. Explosions littered the sky as the two sides keep launching attacks at each other. When suddenly a real-life dragon appeared and heading towards Naruto's attacker. They were not surprised or shocked but Kikyo used a bit more strength and when it was closer cleaved through the dragon in half all the way until the tail. Surprisingly there was no blood but rather it dissipated as chakra in the air. Seeing Naruto ahead and facing them with a smirk, they tensed and prepared themselves. Putting away his sword, which disappeared by darkness converging onto one spot from the tip of the blade and the end of the handle, clapped his hand together. The girls seeing this made their eyes widen like plates. Reason is because if Naruto were to make any hand seals, or in his case clapping his hand together, then it would mean a powerful jutsu is going to be used. They were now very wary and cautious and ready to flee at any given moment. Chakra was visible as it gathered in Naruto, and as an aura of blue engulfed him. He then exclaimed with a voice full of power the name of his technique. Koton. Shichiko no Jutsu, Sin Release. 7 Sins Technique. Dark, malevolent and sinful chakra exploded out of Naruto, forming a ring around him. The air around 7 different spots rippled as huge things appeared out from it. The things appeared to be pedestals with statues, beings with wings wrapping around themselves, and there is a plate on a pedestals with words on them. The first one had the words, Hokori, pride, on it. The second had, Goyoku, greed. The third, Koshoku, lust. Fourth, Doki, wrath. Fifth, Busho, sloth. Sixth, Senbu, envy. And seventh, Haoshoku, gluttony. All going in a clockwise direction. The statues soon began to tremble as the wings opened, revealing a woman's body underneath it, which soon began to glow white, forming a sphere of white. The spheres of white soon began to crack and shatter, showing what's inside. Monsters, creatures that reeked of their respective sins. Some are beautiful, some are not, and some are monstrous. The monster of pride had a humanoid body and skin as black as night. Silver waist-length hair with a crown of sorts with 3 pointed tips jutting out from the middle, with crimson-red eyes in the sclera and the pupil, with a black slit and silver pigmentation around its eyes and 2 lines streaking down like tears. Its body having an intricate markings on them. Arms looked normal enough except for the protrusions of blades over the entire arm, and having claws painted red that looked capable of even shattering diamond. Legs normal as well except for having clawed feet painted red as well, with a tail that ended in a pointy 3-pronged blade. The monster of greed had a thin but demonic-looking body with black skin. Having multicolored waist-length hair, 2 horns protrude out to the front and eyes glowing a silver light, with an arrogant smirk plastered to its face showing pointed fangs and canines. Its body having a line that traveled down to its navel joining a circle, while 3 other points separate out from the left, right and down. Its arms having been set ablaze with black flames with specks of red up till the joint where trails of flames moved in intricate pattern ending in a spiral with a circle on its palm. The legs are hind legs, and it seemed to be clothed in greaves of crimson flames with clawed feet. The monster of lust took on a form of a woman with pale skin. Crimson waist-length hair with silver highlights, with pointed ears and eyes of ruby, with a black slit that glows and a pouty lips accentuated by pale red lip gloss. Her DD cup bare to the world, huge bat wings on her back, and her arms ended in pointed fingertips which emitted blue flames. Her legs slim and long ended with a normal set of feet. The monster of wrath had a demonic form of pale red. Had black hair that seemed to be on fire. It had black sclera and red pupilled eyes that glows and longer than normal canines and fangs. It had a muscled body with intricate black markings, with strong but not bulky arms with claws, and it had hind legs with clawed feet. The monster of sloth had a humanoid form having ash-gray skin. 2 horns curved backwards over his grayish silver hair, and toxic green emerald eyes on his face that screams lazy. Thin arms with markings on them and claws for hands. Legs thin with the same markings on his arms, and rings of green flames on his ankles and clawed feet. The monster of envy had a bewitching womanly form. Lustrous black hair cascade down her back to her knees like a waterfall. Eyes of white with a black slit that seems to glow over her heart-shaped face. Full and succulent DD cup exposed to the world, with trails of icy blue flames traveling down her arms stopping at her nails. Long smooth legs that seems to go on forever, marked with lines like a fishnet stockings, with the same flames twirling around them, with a normal set of feet. The monster of gluttony, truly a monstrous sight. Having obsidian hair that burns with black flames, purple eyes that gleam with hunger, with a crazed grin. Parts of its body seems to be distorted like a vortex. Spikes jutted out on its shoulders, and the palms having small black holes sucking in air. Legs with scales covering it on some parts around the kneecaps and around the ankles. Instead of having 5 toes, it have 3 clawed toes. Kikyo, Hikari, Hana, Mira, Shinya were beyond shocked. They were downright shocked with overwhelming dread creeping onto their faces. Out of all things, he summoned them, Kikyo thought. We're dead, we're so dead. Hikari thought. I rather fight the entire realm of hell than face them. Hana thought. Why oh why must we face them? Mira thought. I rather fight the Jubi than face this aspects. Shinya thought. The 7 creatures of sin looked around before the aspect of wrath spotted them and growled, knowing the reason of why they're here now. Hearing Wrath growling, they saw him facing forward and spotted the group of ladies. The aspect of lust, with a lusty smile and flirtatious voice said, "May we meet again? How long has it been since we were called for a mock battle against you beautiful ladies? Hey, I don't care as I long can punch or hit something to be an outlet of my wrath." The gruff voice of the aspect of wrath said, "So we are here again to fight you plebeians. HMPH very well, I shall teach you a lesson then." Came the proud, noble, prideful and arrogant voice of the aspect of pride. "I hope this time I'll be able to eat them." The hungry voice of the aspect of gluttony said, "All you ever think about is eating. This time my desire and want for you will come true as I claim you as my collections." The greedy and possessive voice of the aspect of greed said, "HMPH so here we are again. I see that your form, appearance and beauty still does not match mine. I bet your powers are the same as well." The boastful voice of the aspect of envy said, "What a drag. Let's just do it quickly so I can go back to my nap," said the aspect of sloth in a lazy and yawning tone. Before the 7 sins of humanity, Team Legend and Team Tenkai couldn't help but tremble and shiver in their presence. Each radiating their own sins strongly and powerfully that they were able to see themselves in a vision of succumbing to one of the sins and doing or experience something that'll make them have nightmares for many moons to come. But despite this development, before any could make a move, an overwhelming pressure suddenly smashed on all of them, making them, all powerful in their own right that could do more than simply destroy a village, struggle to even stand and not buckle under the sheer pressure. "That's enough from you lot. I have summoned you 7 here to have a mock battle with them, not taunt them or making unnecessary comments. Listen to me and you won't be hurt severely later. Is that understood?" A powerful and booming voice shouted out. Turning towards the source of it, they saw Naruto, a very changed Naruto. Hair didn't change much other than the fact that it seems to be glittering red, icy blue and black. Like his hair burned with the 3 colors melding into one. His ears shifting to the top of his head, an orange-red color. His eyes glowed with immeasurable power and a black slit with his whisker marks becoming darker, giving him a feral look. His nails painted crimson becoming pointed like a claw, while orange, red flames with streams of icy blue and black floated beside it in an intricate symbol. Think Negi's Magia Rebia, the flames beside his arms from Negima, but with this colors instead of black. A pair of wings with ice on the scapulars where the wing joined the back, and the alula with pale blue feathers that permeated an icy aura and blue glow to them. Having another pair of draconic wings right between and slightly above the first pair that is black as the void, with an even deeper black aura on the scapulars and alula. 9 bushy fox tails made out of crimson flames, 5 phoenix tails with parts of it ice and glowing a freezing aura, and 1 long scaly black dragon tail with the scales being a dark silver. His toes changing to claws with crimson polish. Oh, and he's radiating killer intent, ki, ryatsu, chakra, yuki, and an aura of extreme malice, making the temperature become sub-zero and the air distorted and contorted. His very presence now makes them feel extremely scared and terrified. Even the sins, an extreme cold that they were shivering, and completely feeling empty of their feelings, senses or emotion. Naruto blinked and looked at them, feeling the side effects of his yuki, blinked 1 time before gaining a sheepish look. Ehehehe, Gomen. Forgotten about this, Naruto said sheepishly. He then received the yuki he was subconsciously releasing, and the effects lessened to be bearable enough. They all breathed in relief and for the need of air. Gaining their bearings, they looked at him and couldn't help but marveled at his transformed state. His very presence able to make any lesser man drop dead just by being there, and by looking into his eyes, you will be forever trapped in them. Lost to reality, captivated by eyes full of incomprehensible power by any mortal being, and the souls forever lost in them. Naruto cleared his throat to stop them from starring too much. Snapping to their senses, he began, "Now that I have your attention, How about we begin the real battle now? Naruto looked at the group of ladies in front of him. Ladies, how about a waltz with this devil's hymn? It'll be interesting to say the least. The ladies looked to each other before facing the aspects and Naruto with amused expressions. I thought you won't ask, Naruto. Kikyo smirked. Indeed, how long do you think we're waiting for you to utter those words? Hikari rose a brow. You sure know how to make people wait. Hana chirped in. Especially ladies. Don't you know it's rude? Mira grinned a teasing grin. Shame on you, Naruto. Making us wait for the true event. Eyes glimmering with a gleam, Shinya said. Naruto and the Sins looked at them with stumped expressions. Naruto suddenly laughed out loud. His voice deep and demonic, his laughter booming like thunder. Ha 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 ha, you girls never failed to amuse me. If you're expecting this then, very well. Naruto shouted. The aspect of greed immediately raised both hands where darkness began to swirl in his palms. He get suck into the endless abyss. Miten. Kyuko no Jutsu, darkness release, inhaling void technique. A huge void appeared from his palms, sucking in the girls with great suction speed. But they were prepared and Kikyo gathered chakra and shouted, Sweden. Daisuiden no Jutsu, water release, great water bullet technique. Kikyo spat out a huge blob of water that flew towards the sucking darkness. It impacted and for some reason could not suck it in. Greed was wearing a confused and shocked expression as he tried to figure out what happened. The girls were smirking when they were abruptly sent flying in random directions. Turning back to see who it was, they saw Pride standing there with a proud look on his face. Before they could adjust themselves, they were being knocked around into the ground, forming craters. The one who did it was Wrath, who was smirking in triumph. Greed finally managed to suck in the water bullet and release a huge Kyuko no Jutsu and beginning to suck in the fallen ladies. Then the huge void suddenly shot forward in a drill-like manner. Greed was grinning crazily. Ha! Take this, ladies. Miten. Kurofu Shinren, darkness release, dark terror abyss drill. The gigantic drill of darkness sped at incredible speed towards the earth. The ladies quickly got up and scram. The drill hit the earth, drilling through it and continuing through, kicking up debris and dust. Mira launched a huge fireball at Pride, who didn't move from his previous position. Said aspect saw it and merely smirked. Futile. He swatted away the fireball and launched back an even bigger black fireball. Dodging the fireball where it exploded in a huge explosion, Mira jetted towards him, flames coming out of the soles of her feet. Channeling more chakra to her right leg, she attempted a roundhouse kick despite being so far away from Pride and released the chakra in her right leg, forming an extremely long whip of flames swinging closer to Pride. Pride, seeing this, released his demonic energy in a sphere around him. His Yuki was a deep purple color as the flame whip whipped the sphere, cracking it like glass. Despite this, Pride reared back his arm and launched a punch that sends a blast towards Mira. Said person saw this and gathered the flames around her, forming a protective sphere of flames around her. The blast impacted the sphere, causing a huge explosion to occur. Mira was sent flying straight into the ground, forming a huge crater around her. Hana rushed to help her but had to backflip to dodge a punch from Wrath to avoid turning to paste. Rushing back in, she punched with chakra, enhancing her and sent Wrath skidding a few meters back. Wrath grinned despite being pushed back and slammed the ground beneath him, causing the earth to shake and shatter. Hana had to jump to avoid that before gathering water in her hands and throwing out a lance of water at him. Wrath dodged it and stretched out his hand, swiped it towards her. As it did, trails of energy left his hand and formed waves. Hana dodged the waves and palmed the ground with both hands and shouted, Mokuton. Hyojin Kuku, wood release, sharp pit. The ground beneath Wrath trembled a bit before jutting out sharp wooden spikes. Wrath was quick enough to avoid it but not quick enough to avoid getting scrapped. Wrath ignored the minor wounds as it was already healing and focused on Hana. Said person in turn focused back at him. Well, let's begin. I still haven't settled our score back then. Wrath said, flexing his claws. Hana settled into a stance and made a come on gesture. Wrath happily agreed. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.